I think we'll go ahead and get going. Um, as you know, we have three presenters here today. We have Matt Smucker with the Polk County Warming Centers, Brenda Simpson with Bend First, and Sue Crothers with Salem First. As you probably are aware, the Presbytery is offering these collaborative conversations on a regular basis. We have had about maybe 10 in the past. They are all on our YouTube channel. We've done Matthew 25. We've done food programs, ideas for utilizing your properties, church security. If any of those topics are floating around in your church, you might head to our YouTube channel, and I will put a link to that in the chat here shortly. And invite you to utilize those. One that is timely that we did a while back is on Advent. So ideas for Advent as we are entering that season. Our next collaborative conversation will be Wednesday, November 13th at noon. And that will be on officer training. So if that appeals to anyone, watch for the link in the Cascades Connection, our weekly newsletter, and how we communicate best with you. And that will be hosted by Stated Clerk Paul Bells Templeman and Eileen Sheeler. So, okay, let's get going here. Sue Crothers is gonna present first. Thanks, Sue.
Yes, hi everybody, and thanks for being here. So our church became a shelter about 8 years ago. Before that time, there was a kind of a rotating loose connection of downtown and other downtown churches and other facilities overseen by the Community Action Agency that provided shelter. And it was community volunteers, almost 100%, who staffed those efforts. And then over time, you know, things change and churches dropped out, the spaces became unavailable, and a need for a reliable shelter close to downtown became evident. And that's when Salem First got connected. We received a grant, several $1,000s, and we, you know, bought our blankets and mats and supplies and so on, and opened a shelter. Our main function is to provide hospitality and food. So our church volunteers are the volunteers in the kitchen. And so, you know, we're the ones that are dispensing the smiles, joking with our lovely guests, observing their community, and dispensing hot cup of noodles, oatmeal, hot chocolate, and so on. It takes about 5 or 6 volunteers every night to do that. And we used to be open all night, but due to our aging, we have diminished the number of hours every night that we are actually there. So that's working really well for us. And we are also, you know, I think, you know, collaboration is the name of the game in this conversation and others. We are at the present time reaching out to other churches, to our friends, to our Rotary groups, and so on, to bolster the number of hospitality volunteers in our facility so that we can keep doing this. And then, of course, our church members who can't volunteer support our effort by donating, you know, the food items, the snacks, or the cash to purchase those, which amounts to $4,000 or $5,000 every warming season. I guess that's about, you know, kind of you know, what we do. And I would just say that, you know, working directly with guests in this way is really transformative for the people that do it. I'm sure you've all had the same kind of experience. We find that our friends that we bring in and expose them to this population are surprised by their humanity, surprised by their gratitude. And it helps them advocate out in the community when they are exposed to this kind of thing. So, you know, the ways, I guess that's all I would say about kind of our background, but the ways you could help without becoming a shelter, you know, basically find an effort that's out there in your community, inquire what they need and provide it. And folks, the homeless population always needs new clothing, you know, fresh clothing, so you can do clothing drives. They need underwear, they need bottom and tops that are warm, they need jackets, they need, I would say, rain tarps too would be very helpful. We have assembled hygiene kits in the past, and I was telling Cherie that we have a list of suggested items that I could provide at another time. So that's something you can do. There are medical needs in obviously among this population, and one glaring need that has really tugged at my own heart is watching the feet of the individuals that have been on the street and walking around with wet, cold feet. So, you know, perhaps if your church has a medical person that would volunteer some hours, that would be really great. Our guests love and really miss having fresh fruit. So, you know, we look for donations of soft fruits like bananas and you know, mandarin oranges, things that are easy to eat. We are also going to be starting to serve a hot meal soup and bread at the beginning of each warming night. Currently, those products are going to be provided by the Community Action Agency, but if your church has capacity for something like that, it would be so welcome anywhere out in the community. And then obviously it's voting season, so vote. That's something you could do, and, you know, advocate in our community for the humanity of folks, you know, for affordable housing, for you know, medical and recovery needs, and so on. So that's basically all I have to offer. And that's what we're doing.
Thanks, Sue. I'll go next. I'm Brenda Simpson. I am the coordinator of Justice and Mission for First Presbyterian Church in Bend. Part-time job, 10 or 15 hours a week, unless it's an emergency shelter time, then it's a little bit more. I will say that we don't have a regular shelter. It's not our day job. Our church has, I see the question, what is the warming shelter temperature in Oregon? And I think that varies a lot by region. I'll continue to speak to that here in Bend, but then you can talk about other things. But we have 2 daycares and a private school rents space in our building. So as you can imagine, that makes things a little difficult. We do not have staff. We do not do this on a regular basis. We have a long history of responding to emergency needs since the early 90s when I joined First Pres in Bend. It was renewed about 3, maybe 4 years ago when we had a veteran that froze to death in his wheelchair near the dumpster at Rite Aid, right off of 3rd Street, right in downtown Bend. There weren't enough shelter beds. He'd been turned away and he froze to death. So that's when we started thinking, well, you know, we can't, there's a lot of reasons why we couldn't do a shelter, but none of those were important enough. So we started looking at what we could do. We partner with the Homeless Leadership Coalition in Bend, and Deschutes County has a preparedness environment. Oh, what is it? Preparedness engagement environment coordinator that we coordinate with. We do not do this on a regular basis. We make it clear to everyone. But if we feel that the outdoor conditions in Bend are such that it is dangerous to life, not just comfortable, but dangerous, then we figure out how we can open our doors. Last year it was 4 nights. The year before it was 3 nights. And it all depends. We step up when it's cold and there is a shortage of beds. So we coordinate with the other people to see what that is. Typically, nighttime temperatures below 10 degrees, and people that have ways to live in their cars and camps that's just too cold, and they're losing fingers and toes and their life sometimes. So they go in, and then our current beds get overfull. Sorry, not finding words very well today. They get over full, and we step up and provide beds. And it's been sort of 30 to 40 beds for a few nights during the extreme cold. We partner with the Universal Unitarian Fellowship here in Bend as well. I'll say a little tongue in cheek, they're wonderful partners. They have a gorgeous new building. So we do it in our building because it's not so gorgeous and new. But they do bring a lot of volunteers and monetary help. We open up, and it's not just in the winter. In Bend, sometimes we get hot and really poor air quality as well, dangerous smoke and air quality. And then we have also daytime cooling shelters. We haven't opened for that in the last couple of years because it's easier to house a lot of people during those conditions. But then we do contact through the same network and find out what they need. And we have supplied last 2 summers Gatorade and bottled water and snacks, hundreds of dollars of those kinds of things to help where they are open. And we always prefer helping someone else unless it's necessary that we open. So in the wintertime, the last 2 winters, we have opened sort of at between 5 and 6 in the evening, and we close at 9 in the morning. It's just a warm place for them to sleep and survive a severe cold night. We provide dinner, we provide breakfast, we have hot drinks, we have snacks. We put an appeal out to have people bring in socks and shoes and hats and gloves and anything warm that people might need. Ours is all volunteers, and we usually have about 48 hours notice when the county says we're going to need to open up. So we have a list of volunteers at both our church and the UU church, over 100 people. We have our sign-up geniuses already made. We modify them at the last minute and shoot them out, start making phone calls. It is costly. It's several $1,000s. The food is donated. We have a collection of cots and sleeping bags. The sleeping bags are laundered every day after they leave before they come again. I won't go into all the logistics, but it is a huge effort, and especially the night shift of supervision. But with the volunteer base we have, it's 3 is the minimum, 4 or 5 is the optimum overnight, and we can usually fill that for a short amount of time. And we have ways that we block off areas of the church so that the preschools and the other things are separate. We do have to every year have a fire marshal inspection, but they're when we see this coming, the county supports that. And so they come and give us a quick inspection. We make any changes that are needed. And we have different occupancy in different areas of our church. Sometimes we do 2 nights in one area, and then, like up in the sanctuary while the schools are going on downstairs. And then we clean up and move it all downstairs during the weekend so we can worship upstairs when the schools aren't operating downstairs. So it's very much customized for the needs. It's a lot of work, but it's amazingly rewarding, as Sue pointed out. And yes, it is cold enough in Bend that as we're helping people, we have ways to soak their feet. Many have frostbitten toes. Many are missing toes because of previous incidences. It just really touches your heart. We also take their pets, which is a whole nother challenge, but we're figuring out how to work with that as well. So that sort of gives you an overview of what we're doing in Bend, and sometimes it goes smoother and sometimes not, but it's always been successful and very worthwhile. So thank you.
So Matt, I know you're presenting next, but before you do, Lynn Helmke has a question for Sue, and I know Sue's going to have to leave here shortly. So I wondered if we could get your question, Lynn.
Actually, she answered it. I was
Okay.
wondering what the season was, and she put
Okay,
that in her
perfect.
chat. So thank
Perfect.
you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here and taking the time to have this conversation. My name is Matt Smucker with the Polk County Warming Centers, as well as I'm a chaplain with Church at the Park, which is based out of Salem. And we are getting very close through Church at the Park to open up 2 shelter sites in Polk County, which will be the first long-term 24/7 shelters available in the rural parts of our county that are open to anyone, and including pets and families. And so we're very excited about that. It's a gap in services that we've known for years. I've been aware of it since we started the warming centers back in 2018. I was part of that process as a local pastor. And our model is a little bit different from other communities in the sense that we work with various congregations throughout Monmouth, Independence, and Dallas. And we each are on call for a 2-week period at a time. And so during the season of November through March, we have a sign-up schedule for various churches to take a 2-week time slot. A lot of churches will do one early in the season, one late in the season, where they're on call for that 2-week period. And when it gets down to freezing or below, then we activate. And because of the funding that we receive as well through Community Action Agency in Salem, we've been blessed with those grant funds to purchase a trailer, which has all of our supplies of bedding, mattresses, cleaning supplies, extra food, outreach supplies like sleeping bags and mats and those type of things as well. We hook that up and tow that to the facility, and then it's essentially a warming center in a box. And so that gets unloaded into the building. The only requirement for each church is that it's just a warm and dry space. So it could be a fellowship hall, it could be a Sunday school classroom, it could be a lobby. We've really done it almost any space that's available. And then we require restrooms as well. So warm and restrooms, that's really all that you need. And some churches are flexible enough, they give us a key and we just do it. And that's as much as they're involved. And other congregations decide that they can do a little bit more. And so they step up and serve meals. We try to have hot food, whether it's just a cup of noodles that we provide through our grant funding, or whether it's a home, cooked meal that's brought in. We try to have that available for folks. It just allows sleep so much easier when you have something warm in your stomach. And so we have our hours are 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. on those freezing nights. And then we make arrangements for folks to get back to the community that they're familiar with during the day. Because we're in a rural environment, sometimes people are coming in from out of town, out in the countryside, or from other cities in our county. And so we work with Chariot's bus system, which is the local, public transit system. They provide rides for free if folks are coming to or from the warming centers. So we're very thankful for that partnership over the last number of years. And then we do have a 12-passenger van that we're able to use for that as well. We source all of our volunteers from the community. And so that is a great way to be involved, even if you're not able to coordinate or operate a warming shelter at your particular congregation, to be a volunteer for something else that's happening in your community is a great way to be involved as well. We always have ongoing needs for grab and go food, for pet supplies, dog and cat food. We've had people who knit hats through the course of the year, and then they bring a big bag of hats for us, in the beginning of winter. Warm clothing. We have a real estate agency in the community that does a warm clothing and blanket drive for us every fall, which is wonderful, and that really gets us stocked up for the year. And we have a connection with Bombas Socks that we were able to get a couple years ago. So when they say that you buy one and they give one pair, they actually do. And they have 3 full-time staff who coordinate that donation program. And we've been a recipient of that for 2 years now. So last year we got 3,000 pairs, and this year we got 5,000, which is even more impressive when those boxes show up in your driveway. So we are very thankful for that and the opportunity to bless those who are in need of those supplies in our community. I would say another practical need would be for laundry, whether it's for guests or for the center itself. We don't have a very good system for laundering our shelter blankets and supplies. So I usually just take those home. But we do have volunteers on occasion who say, hey, I'd be happy to do an extra load or 2 this week. And they collect the bags and do that for us. That's a huge blessing. A seemingly small thing, but it makes a big difference. And we put together we call them blessing bags, little bags of hygiene supplies, water bottles, hand warmers, granola bars, those kind of things as well, just to be able to give to folks when the center isn't open and they just need a little something to get them through the day. I want to direct you to our website, and I'll put that in the chat, specifically the link to get involved, because we have a list on there of materials, supplies that we are always in need of. And we do provide some of those things through the grant funding, but we love getting those from the community as well to supplement. And so it's kind of a handy list if you wanted to, use ideas from that for your community as well. And then I see in the chat from Gail. Thank you, Gail. She is in our community and we love her. Are you still connecting with the Falls City Warming Center? Yes. And so we do have a site in Falls City as well. If you're familiar with Polk County, Falls City is very much isolated from the rest of the community. There is no public transportation available to and from Falls City. And so we have starting in 2019, we started hosting a warming shelter in Falls City at the same time that we host our rotating shelter. And we are planning to continue that this year as well.
Okay, so there you have it. Our 3 presenters. Let's go ahead and open it up for Q&A. Or we would also love to hear what you are doing. So I'm sure there's a few people that have come with some ideas of how they're providing hospitality in their communities. So feel free to unmute and tell us what's up.
Well, I can start that off. Sherry, thank you so much. Marilyn Palumbo, I'm with St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Portland. In our community, we have a Safe Rest Village, and it's in Multnomah. And when that was starting up, and I also have a pastor and an administrator who are very key to building organic interactions in the community. So what happened in our case was they started, Sarah and Katie started this Southwest Faith Coalition because they noticed that the faith communities in general were not a part of community action groups, and they wanted to see how that would work to have some represent. So they literally drew kind of a circle on the map and started including different faith communities and started this Southwest Faith Coalition. At the same time, all of the neighbors of the Multnomah Safe Rest Village, not all of the neighbors, many of the neighbors, their hair caught on fire because this Safe Rest Village was going to be located right in their neighborhood. So another group that started was called the Friends of the Multnomah Safe Rest Village. And it was through that organization, that community organization, that was supporting work on houselessness. And the Southwest Faith Coalition, that they started communicating. And there was one particular person who wanted to serve people living outside now. The Safe Rest Village was in its infancy, if you will, and she said, okay, what are we going to do now? And that was my passion also. So we partnered, she and I, to start this organization we now call Southwest Outreach. We send teams of 2 out into the community and look for and visit with people living outside and find out what they need. And we did this for a while, and it was a stretch for me, I'll tell you true. It was hard. Not for long though, because I had a lot of support. And I have a church, a congregation that they may not want to join me, but boy, they'll support me. So we listened and learned that the 2 biggest needs were laundry and showers. So we started, and then we had another congregation in Multnomah Village who had a shower. So we started opening that shower with their collaboration and support, and then all of the various neighbors who came and volunteered their time. And we now we're open only 1 day a week, but we have 12 people that come in and get showers and about 25 people that come in. It's a day center setting, so we're serving a hot meal now. We're meeting people and visiting with them for this 4-hour period. And I guess I will say from my heart, it is amazing what you see when these people walk in the door and then their shoulders drop and they start to relax and they begin to speak and talk about what they need. And they're in that time, we discover their needs and we find ways to meet them to where we can partner with them to go to medical appointments, to one we're working on veterans benefits, and it's hard to wade through all of those individual needs and accompany them. But that's one of the things that we find ourselves doing, whether it's with the VA, with Social Security. We're learning a lot, and we may serve a very small portion of the community, but we've got a lot of support. We get donations of food now from Head Start and from the Multnomah Arts Center, from the food pantry and the food bank in our community. It's a very organic developing of here's what we heard was needed. And then amazingly, people say, I heard you were doing this. And people join us, and that's my little what we're doing in Southwest Portland spiel. Thank you.
Thanks, Marilyn. Barbara from our Kenilworth Church, which is, so Maryland's church is in the deep southwest, basically, area of Portland. And then Barbara Voterbeck is here from our Kenilworth Church, which is southeast, near OMSI, you could say, just to give you an idea of what they're doing in that location.
Okay, well, we have two things that we've been doing. When we got into the pandemic, the presbytery sent out a check to every church and challenged them to double it if they could. Well, our office manager put out the word to the neighborhood and our preschool that's in our church, and we did more than double it. And we started a food pantry at a neighboring elementary school. It's called Grout Elementary. It's just 4 blocks from our church. And we started on setting up tables and putting out food. We get donations from New Seasons and GFC, and we get food from Oregon Food Bank, and we serve the neighborhood. It started out just to be families of the elementary school, but it's turned into much more than that. And we now set up outside our church on the sidewalk every Friday. And we pass out a lot of food to a lot of people. We usually have at least 80 people coming through every Friday. And then we were asked by Rose City Park Presbyterian, our PW was asked to collaborate with them on serving food twice a month, a meal twice a month at Y East Veterans Shelter, which is over here in East Portland on 122nd. And the coordinator puts out what the main dish is going to be, and then everybody signs up for either serving the entree, making the entree, or salads, desserts, rolls, things like that. And we started doing that twice a month, 2 Fridays a month. We are now doing it 1 Friday a month, but we make enough food and deliver it on Friday night at 6:30 on the 3rd Friday night, and so that they can be served a meal, home cooked meal, and the people that work there can get a bit of a break one night.
And I'll throw out there too that Kenilworth is a congregation of 40 to 50 on a good Sunday.
Well, yeah, we have 29 members. We
Okay.
35 maybe on a good Sunday. Yeah.
So, yeah, we've been following your groceries for Grout, and that's good work, Barbara. Yeah, kudos to Little Kenilworth doing mighty things in their community.
Well, we thank the presbytery for the incentive.
Yeah, that $1,000 that came as a result of COVID, right? And we sent out mini grants and asked you to match it, and that was just incredible. The response, it was overwhelming what came of that. So that was about $90,000 that went out to our 90 churches, and I think maybe 1 or 2 churches returned the grant because they didn't have the energy to work on it. But I can't even, I don't remember the figures of how much that multiplied into, but it was really an awesome,
Well, and
result.
yeah, the more people see what you're doing, the more donations we get. Just people from the neighborhood who see what's happening will just drop off a check or some cash or whatever. So
Yeah, so
that
thanks,
helps.
Barbara.
Ours grew up to about 5,000 eventually.
Nice, nice. Anybody else? Who
Yeah,
else?
Sherry, I'd like to share my church's experience. My name is Kelsey Anderson. I'm with Rise Church. We're in Washington County in Tigard, Oregon. And our journey is, we're kind of at the tail end of our journey, almost like compared to many of you. So we started our overnight shelter once a week during the cold season back in 2005. So we did an overnight shelter for 15 plus years. And we had somebody in Washington County who really helped to pull together the various churches, encourage them to do it, and then really help pull us together to organize. So we had various churches in Washington County that were like, somebody's open Monday, somebody's open Wednesday, somebody's open Thursday, Friday, etc. And so we were really kind of working together and talking and sharing experiences. And, I think all of you know, you get a little hooked, right? When you start to volunteer for this stuff and you meet the population and you get to see the same faces over and over again. And then COVID happened. And COVID was, of course, a major disruption. Our church base is elderly, so our volunteers were elderly, and the Washington County government, they stepped in a good way. And my church actually let a nonprofit that Washington County paid for run a 7 days a week, 24 hours a day shelter out of our church. But then after that, like really, COVID, like who knows what to do in a little bit. Interestingly enough, Washington County basically decided to pay for shelter care. And so they put out bids, and they got nonprofit agencies, and they selected nonprofits agencies and bought hotels and stuff, and a lot of, safe parking and a lot of different programs. And then really pay nonprofits to run 7 day a week shelters. And they also flex when it's too hot or it's too cold. So we no longer have the need for churches in Washington County to provide shelters or warming or freezing or the food. So we found ourselves, and it was a bit of a rough transition because, you have these like super dedicated, over a decade of experience, very committed to it churches who kind of got pushed out, quite frankly. And we did try, a bunch of us were like, hey, how can we help? Or we could volunteer, we could do this, we could do that. And the model changed so much that they didn't really want our volunteer. And then, so we tried for a year to say, well, we can bring a meal once a week, that would help out. And they forgot half the time that we were bringing a meal, so it was just kind of like, guess you don't really need us. So my church, we said, well, we're very committed to the people, and it's great. It's a great model for them where they have it's a quasi reservation system. They've got a place they can go. They've got 7 days a week. They've got meals. We're very happy for the population. We're not gonna pout. But what can we do that we can provide something meaningful, because they're already paying for the meals. They already have the overnight shelter. And so my church came up with, well, what we did best was listening and seeing them as real people, right? Which I think everybody, that's really what gets you hooked, is you're like, I see you, you're a real person to me. So we, not very often, but about three nights a year, we have our Wednesday night congregation dinner, and we make it a holiday theme. Like we just had one for Halloween. So we do a holiday theme. We kind of decorate more than we usually do. And we go to the local shelter and we invite them to come have dinner with us. So it's not a soup kitchen. It's not, hey, we're opening and we're feeding the homeless. It is literally, we're eating a meal. We would like to share a meal with you. We would like to sit down together, invite you, leave the shelter, get out of that environment, and come share a meal with other people. So that's what we're doing now. When we kind of, like I said, kind of the tail end of like we used to do all the work that you did, and now we're at the like, well, we see you, you're people to us.
Nice. Thanks.
And
Kelsey.
by the way, we have a lot of mats and blankets, and I got to talk to my session to see if we're willing to give those up. But good chance that if anybody needs like mats and blankets, like could offer those, give those resources that we no longer need.
Can I ask a quick question, Sherry? This is
Sure.
Michael Talbot from
Hi,
Salem.
Michael.
Hi, what was the response in your congregation to that offer to come and share a meal with us? And how did the veterans, how did they respond to that?
If you're asking me,
Yes,
think
yes,
so,
yes.
Kelsey.
the veterans
Sorry.
in the shelter or the veterans in the congregation?
The ones that when you started inviting them to just come to a celebratory meal at your church, it wasn't a soup kitchen, it wasn't anything, just to come share a meal with us. What was the response to that?
From the congregation or from the homeless?
From both.
Oh,
How
okay.
did the congregation respond? How did the folks you were inviting respond?
The congregation responded great. I got up, we make a bunch of announcements and kind of talk it up before it. And mostly what we have is the people who are going to come to the Wednesday night meal, keep coming to the Wednesday night meal. And just recently, and then they would forget and they would fill up the table. And then there was like, the homeless would sit by themselves and they would, so just this last one, I put two reserved tents at each table so that we could intermingle a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, on the homeless shelter side, it's completely optional because they are getting fed. We're not replacing the meal. So we get about, 10 to 12 out of, I think 24, 25 people who take us up, and we drive them there and back. And some of them are, pretty nonverbal and pretty non-social. And I think that they're, it's always a little bit new because we space it out enough. And so I think some of them are a little uncomfortable and it's maybe not quite their jam to sit and talk. And we don't push or, try to like make them talk too much, but there's definitely always, I would say the more of them are kind of happy for the social opportunity, and the ones who can socialize and hold a conversation better tend to be the ones that are even happier for that opportunity. And pretty grateful on the way back. And we give, like Matt said, we give them kind of a goodie bag of stuff that they could use. So mostly they seem pretty into it.
Thank you.
I think that's really, really exciting, Kelsey. What church are you from? I missed that.
Rise Church in Tigard, Oregon.
I used to be Calvin Presbyterian.
Yes, used to be Calvin. Thank you.
Yeah, Gina, what's
Hi.
going on up in St. Helens?
Hi,
at
I'm
Plymouth?
We started, one of our parishioners, Jan Stites, pardon my voice, a little croaky today, saw the need in our community. Homeless were sleeping under bridges, and it's not a very large community. And she came to the church and, what can we do? So we started a warming center in the church, in the fellowship hall, mats and everything. And we ran the food and everything like that. And then I think we did it for 2-ish years. And then we call it Community Action Team here. As it was growing, they helped us and then stepped in, and it's transitioned from being at our church to they had bought it. Well, Community Action Team was in a Grace Baptist Church in St. Helens, which was closer to in town anyway. We're on Sykes Road, so we're kind of at the edge of town. And now where the warming center is, it's more centrally located in town. And so we began it, and our involvement in it, I think the reason I decided to speak up, it was a lot the same. Our involvement as far as that was concerned wasn't as necessary, but being the small yet giving congregation that we are, we've taken on another program, and it's called Boxing Day. And so we gather non-perishable items. We're actually going to transition that even this year to more like pots, pans, plates and stuff. But we were gathering shampoo, conditioner, aluminum foil, those types of things, and putting them in a tote. And we would get like 30 totes, and we would take them to Community Action Team. So when their clients were transitioning into their first permanent homes, they would have this tote of things that would help them. And what always was so touching to me is that over and over again, the thing they often were most excited about was the doggone tote itself. They asked, can we keep the tote? because when you have nothing, a tote that can keep things warm is absolutely amazing. So this year we're going to go and blankets, from the, shampoos and conditioners to setups to plates and things when someone actually has a home. Because we've gotten a lot of our things from the dollar store. And so we're trying to transition a little bit differently.
Interesting. So when you say a tote, are you talking about like a big covered
The plastic,
plastic box?
yeah, the
Yeah,
Sterlite.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So these so I keep hearing about community action teams. Are those like statewide funded teams then that work on reaching out to the unhoused? Does anybody know? I don't know, but I thought I heard Sue talk about community action team and maybe Brenda, and I thought you maybe Matt.
Yeah, I can speak to the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, is based out of Salem, but they have the jurisdiction, so to say, for Marion and Polk counties. And they do a lot of things, not just work with unsheltered, but they have an energy assistance program. They do some youth services and sheltering as well. So there's a lot of different facets to the agency. It's a pretty big nonprofit, and they have a long history of writing and receiving grants for certain things. So the relationship with us here in Polk County has been mostly in the funding side of things. They've helped us to get grants. We put in a request, for example, our first year just to get started. Back in 2018, we put in for $12,000 and they got us 25, which isn't usually how that goes. But we were very thankful, and it's grown since then to be able to provide even more. But they've been a great partner for us to allow us to contextualize what we do with warming centers to our community that they don't have as much experience in, being in a rural environment. But they've been so gracious with assisting us with those administrative pieces and the funding to allow us to run with the rest of it. And so that's been a great partnership. I don't know, Brenda, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, both our county and city governments, I think, acknowledging that they do not have enough bed space are supportive during emergency situations, which is what, of course, it's different than the sustaining it over time. So we work with our county, they help us make sure we have Narcan on site, and that, also the city, make sure that we have the police know that we're opening up and that, they're available to us. We also have had funding from the city to hire professional cleaners to help us clean afterwards, which is useful. And the Homeless Leadership Coalition, also, they're more at looking at the systemic root causes and fix that, not so much responding to the emergency, but they also are a good fit. One of our church members is the executive director of Bethlehem Inn, which is our high barrier shelter. And we work a lot with Shepherd's House, which runs our low barrier shelters in town. So we can just call them and see how it's going. And if they feel like they can't supply the beds, they call us. So yes, just communicating through all of these different people working at the same thing is really the only way that we know what to do and when we're valuable and needed, I guess.
Lynn, I think you're up in the Vancouver area, and I know that up in that area, the SHARE program does amazing work with the unhoused in many different avenues, and I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity there to reach out to them. And if anybody's from up in that area, Vancouver, it sounds to me like there's a lot of opportunity for partnership
Right.
We can't do it ourselves because
Yeah.
we don't have the manpower, but we can do small things, and small things can make a big impact. And I'm making some notes, and I hope you're all making some
Yeah.
notes too. But yeah, I love hearing what everyone else is doing. Is there anyone else that boy, crates are available here, it sounds like. So I hope you're paying attention to the chat. You will also get a copy of the chat on your computer when this meeting is finished, so you can follow up on anything, and you can always come to me if you need a contact, if you need somebody's contact information. I have some things I'd like to share, but if there's somebody else that has some ideas or things they're doing, please don't hesitate. Okay, well, while you think a little more on that topic and maybe review the chat, I just wanted to throw out there a few things. The other day, I was talking to somebody from down in the Medford area, and they are working with the unhoused, much like you all are. And she brought up that nursing students from the OHSU are coming to their facility and doing the foot bath care. And she says it's been an overwhelming reception of that. And so if you have a nursing school in your community, that is a possibility to call on nursing students. I wanted to give a shout out to Yachats. Yachats as well. So our little Yachats community church, they have these pods, and they're separate from the church, and they open them up again on during extreme weather events, which down there isn't all that often, but it is, a place for people to go and spend the night. I don't know how much they cost, but they're just sitting there in a row on their property, and they put them to good use then when the weather warrants. I heard a lot about showers and laundry. So what a great opportunity. Pick up some laundry from one of these facilities and head to the laundromat. That would be a great, idea for making a huge impact. Sounds like Tigard has mats and blankets we're not 100% sure about, but Kelsey will let us know if she does. The other thing I wanted to bring up is money. Are you thinking about starting any ministry? If you are, the one grant and fund, because I've heard of people looking for medical help with their warming shelters, there is a grant available through the Synod of the Pacific. So if you're working with one of our churches, you are free to apply for this grant. I'll put it in the chat. Here's the description of it. It's free money. You got to jump through a few hoops, but it works. A few of our churches are already taking advantage of it. Maybe Salem first. Michael, do you know if I've seen a few churches recently, or maybe St. Andrews is taking advantage of this Hilda B. Thompson grant.
Yeah.
So yeah, give that some good thought. If money is any barrier for what, your hopes and dreams are for working with the unhoused in medical, and they've really broadened the scope of what medical means, as you'll see down toward the end of that description. So I wanted to throw that out there. After this meeting, please feel free to email me with any wrap-up ideas that you might have, or anything. Oh, I should have shared. I will put together a wrap-up email and share contacts, resources, and all that. So If you have anything you want me to add to that, or if you have any questions, my email is always open. I'll put it in the chat. And yeah, don't hesitate. What else? I was excited to hear so much of what you all are doing. And I'm sure there's, you know, other things going on that we didn't hear about, but and it also, it's really heartwarming to hear how the volunteers are so blessed through ministering to these people. And yeah, it just sounds like a great opportunity to get involved and yeah, really feel like you're making an impact and a difference in people's lives. So thank you for all of you who are doing that. And for those of you who aren't, reach out, it sounds like, to your local nonprofits who are already doing this work, and lend a hand. Anything else, anyone, or shall we wrap it up?
I would appreciate knowing who among you might be attending Presbytery this weekend. I would love to gather with you and chat more. Maybe Sherry, could you get that out to us also, or do you have the list? I'll recognize you. I'll recognize you.
Could we see a show of hands, or you can put it in the chat if you're attending Presbytery? Put it in the chat, and then we'll all get
Thank you.
So Scott and Gail. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. Yes, we have Presbytery this weekend. Well, Friday, Saturday down in Ashland. So yeah, look forward to seeing all of you who make it down there, and we'll enjoy a good time together, I'm sure. So okay, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks everyone for coming, and thank you to Matt, Brenda, and Sue for presenting and putting their thoughts together. Yeah. And the next, like I said, the next one up is officer training. So if you know somebody in your church that might be interested in that, watch for the sign up link in the Cascades Connection, or find it in our last two. I think it's included. So anyway, all right, everyone. Thanks again. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.